How we doing, folks? It's Wardy here, and as you see, we're back at it, breaking down all the latest news and rumblings of Mets land all throughout the course of the offseason here in WardyNYM. And today, October 15th, 2025, we have multiple reports of news to break down for each and every one of you. Headlined by the Mets' first official move this offseason by David Stearns, and it's, yes, you guessed it, Southpaw sidearmer that the Mets have signed, and Joe Jakes. Yes, you heard that correctly. We're going to break down who is Joe Jakes, what do you need to know about him, if at all, what could he do to potentially impact the Mets, if at all, when evaluating their pitching options heading into 2026, along with the latest reporting in connection to Mets first base stud of a coach, and Antoan Richardson, you know, the same Antoan Richardson, who has helped single-handedly make the Mets one of the best base running teams in baseball. Yeah, that same Richardson may very well not return to the Mets in 2026. We're going to break down what exactly is the status with himself and the Mets right now, what the Mets need to do to make sure that doesn't happen versus him actually potentially being parted with to go elsewhere in an organization. A lot to break down, everybody, so all I ask is that you hit that like and subscribe button on your way in, as it's a fantastic way to support the platform. And let me know your initial thoughts, reactions, and analysis in the comments down below to everything that we're breaking down, from Joe Jakes to Antoan Richardson's uncertainty and a whole lot more in between, folks. And thank you guys for hearing from our amazing sponsors at SeatGeek that have you covered for all of your ticketing needs. Simply head over there to SeatGeek and utilize my promo code WARDY10 because you're going to get 10% off the best, yes, you guessed it, ticket options in the game today. Whether it's NFL, NHL season, NBA season right around the corner, just make sure that you're not Malcolm Brogdon retiring right before my Knicks get their season started. Whatever the case may be when it comes to tickets, SeatGeek has you covered. 10% off of WARDY10, link down below. And head over to mantasleep.com and utilize my promo code WARDY because you're going to get 10% off the best sleep masks in the game today, everybody. Check them out respectively down below. Thank you so much for exactly that. And now, without further ado, let's get into the initial news that each and every one of you that I'm sure are pondering. Who in God's name is Joe Jakes? We are here to talk about it. And as you guys see here, initially of Anthony Como here, lefty sidearmer reliever Joe Jakes has agreed to a contract with the Mets on a minor league deal per source, and it will receive a major league camp invite. The deal is worth a prorated $800,000 if he's on the roster. Jakes, who is a New Jersey native now, has 25 games of Major League experience. Now, my initial reaction to this was a normal, rational one. Okay, the Mets just signed one of a plethora of relievers that they're going to be adding this offseason to compete in spring training, potentially on the outside looking in for the bullpen. That is exactly to a T what this is. So before you get your you-know-what's in a twist and say, oh my God, Wardy, we're bargain bin, we're garbage been shopping yet again, please understand that quite literally every single team in Major League Baseball makes signings of depth, especially with the Mets pitching staff, when if you look at the bullpen right now, they only have one single player under contract, or two, I should say, heading into next season for their bullpen. And that includes Huascar Brosban, if he even cracks this bullpen. Right now, he's arguably our best reliever option right now. That's how low the bar is, with the uncertainty of Edwin Diaz to making sure that you officially claim Brooks Raley for the 2026 season, among so many other aspects. The point is that we know David Stearns, who threw more pitchers out there for the Mets, injury-riddled season in all, 47 pitchers and counting, the most in Major League Baseball history by one singular team in a season. The Mets still went that way, not only because of injuries, but because we know that David Stearns loves to utilize a plethora of relievers. How your bullpen looks to begin the season is by no means how it's going to look by the end of the season. That is held true every year under Stearns, but has that been a good thing? I think we can all agree it hasn't necessarily been a good thing. That lack of consistency has certainly plagued and hurt this club. So when we evaluate someone like Jakes in particular, my initial knee-jerk reaction is that the Mets brought in someone that they are going to utilize to a degree next season, no matter how much you love or hate that as an option. Because what I'm about to tell you in regards to Joe Jakes is maybe going to be flattering here, not so flattering, which some of you guys may think, or somewhere in between. It starts with what Jakes did this past season. The 30-year-old Southpaw sidearmer, and I cannot emphasize that enough, that is why he was signed by the Mets here, has far more to do with his actual makeup of a pitcher as his 6'4" frame and having roughly 30 games of Major League experience than it is necessarily what he has done throughout his career to this point. This is exactly the kind of arm that the Mets are going to dabble with in spring training and see if they can maximize given his unique arm slot and his unique arm angle in general. You don't see too many Southpaw pitchers full sidearmers to the degree that we see a guy like Jake's, for example, that you guys can also see in the highlights that I have for each and every one of you right here, right now. And these are actually highlights from him this season in the Dodgers organization, because he was with the Seattle Mariners and the Dodgers in AAA this year. Pitched in 52 innings and had a roughly 11 strikeouts per 9, which you love to see, but the walk rate wasn't as great that we saw. Just under 4 walks per 9, kept home runs out of the ballpark, under a home run per 9, but the ERA, not sexy, right around a 6, and the FIP was a 4. So, yes, I completely understand everyone saying, oh, great, we got another bum, and that's that. Listen, the beauty about moves like this is that literally he could do nothing. It's not going to impact the Mets negatively, more than likely at all. If he does something, that can only be an upswing of a positive thing for this Mets team, because we know that lefties heading into next year's bullpen, as long as they are healthy, will be Brooks Raley, AJ Minter, and when he does return from injury, if he's still going to be in the organization, that being in Danny Young. Outside of that, the Mets have slim pickings as to who a quality lefty could be in their bullpen. And Jakes doesn't really give off any profile on paper to suggest that he'll be quality, but rather more of that Danny Young type should he get a look at the major league level. And the reason why I think we need to bear in mind this move by the Mets is more so because of the trends that we have seen David Stearns do in the past. Do you guys remember the first move that David Stearns made as president for the Mets last offseason? If you don't, I'll enlighten you, because we did a video on the platform of it, and that was a pitcher that actually impacted the Mets last year, and Chris Davinsky. And Chris Davinsky, too, had signed on a minor league contract with the New York Mets. That was coming off of a season with the Tampa Bay Rays, where in 26 innings, he had himself 8 strikeout per 9, a roughly 5 walks per 9, a 6.75 ERA, and a just under 6 expected ERA. Chris Davinsky's numbers were dog water across the board. But the Mets bring him in, look at the makeup that he has, see the arsenal can benefit this team, especially when look at the S's, because we know that this Mets team loves S's, from sinkers to splitters to sweepers to sliders. Those 4 will usually do good things for this Mets team and what they try to evaluate in their own pitching lab. But the point is Davinsky, in limited sample sizes, when called upon for the Mets, while he didn't pitch an overwhelming amount of games for the Mets, when he was there, he was nails. In 13 games and 16.2 innings, he had just under an 8K per 9 and a 2.7 walks per 9, a home run per 9 that was far and away the lowest in his career going back to his rookie season with the Astros in 2016 at .54, and an ERA for the Mets at 2.16. Expected ERA a bit more inflated there at 3.8, but the point stands. For a guy that felt like, oh, this is a nothing burger of a signing, Chris Davinsky was able to eat innings from the Mets when called upon last year and did it at a fairly quality rate. And if the Mets get an all similar production and what they got from Davinsky last year, now this upcoming season from a fellow reliever, this time in Joe Jakes, who's a borderline major league caliber reliever, then that's a win, because you're not putting any true investment in him outside of tops $800,000, and he's just thrown into the mix of what's going to be an absolute laundry list of pitchers that the Mets heavily consider for right or wrong reason for their bullpen. So you can sit here and say to yourself, oh, I hate the fact that David Stearns got ourselves another bum, or you could be realistic and understand that even with David Stearns having a lot of things he needs to do right for not only this team, but for us fans, after what went wrong this past year, there's no denying that. He needs to prove his worth more than he has to this point. Absolutely. And that same breath, we can also say and evaluate, it's the start of the offseason. Playoffs aren't even done. It's not surprising that a guy like Stearns, who's very proactive as soon as the offseasons usually begin, we've seen that each of the past couple of years as Mets Pobo, you should not be surprised that these are the kind of moves that the Mets start with. Do you guys not recall last offseason the Mets had 5 to 7 moves at minimum before they did anything of potential significance on paper? And that significance, mind you, ultimately became like the Jose Siri trade, another. So a lot of things that we thought looked good on paper still aged like milk, sadly. So if there's one thing that we've learned to this point, Mets fans, is that we should let patience continue to be the virtue that it is. There's no one that should be getting their what's in a twist or freaking out about quite literally a minor league bullpen signing in which this man more than likely is going to start the year in AAA Syracuse should he crack this Mets roster and then obviously be considered at some point throughout the year. Now, is it possible that he looks great in camp, makes proper adjustments, and given the fact that he has such a unique look as a side armor that the Mets take advantage of that and he finds himself making the bullpen, sure, that's absolutely a possibility, but we have to see it to believe it. So I'm not going to sell you guys on the idea that, oh, this is a guy that's going to be a lock in our bullpen. All I know is what we know publicly to this point about him, and it isn't too much information that I think is going to have fans satisfied per se, because we talked about what he did in the minor leagues this year, but throughout his major league career, slightly better numbers in just under 30 innings total, has a 5.46 ERA and a 4.93 expected ERA. But we have seen time and time again, we know how fickle relievers are, so why put much stock into this when you barely put stock into him at all to invest in him to be added to the organization? It's a low risk, fairly low reward move, I would imagine. Maybe you can get this to medium level reward, because I think medium level would be in similarity to what Devenski did for the Mets last year. You're taking that sample size at 800K every single day of the week, because those innings may not seem like much, but Devenski ate some garbage time innings for the Mets when they really need it, and he also ate some quality innings for the Mets when they need it. Just a shame that because of everybody and their mother being hurt, the inconsistencies were beyond apparent, that a guy like Devenski, just wasn't able to really get much more of a look than what he had gotten with the Mets, and what I thought was a very successful all-around season there in his limited sample sizes in 2025. So let me know, guys, your thoughts about the latest move here that the Mets made. I'm pretty neutral about it. I'm not losing sleep over it. The guy could do nothing, or he could be something, a positivity, hopefully, for this Mets team for the better next year. Otherwise, it's on the next, as the Mets are going to have, again, a true laundry list of signings that they're going to have this offseason, as well as inevitable trades, among other things. So going on now from Joe Jakes and what he could potentially provide to this Mets bullpen, let's get on to, in my opinion, the more important news today. Not that Jakes can't be vital to the Mets at some point next year, but at the same time, we're hoping that isn't the case, at least to begin the year, because it's not a great look on paper. We want things to look prettier on paper, even though I understand that pretty on paper does not necessarily equate results. Okay, well and good, understood. Will Salmon of The Athletic, friend the platform, we'll have him back on soon enough. Love this man. And what did Will have to say? He said the following today, folks. For clarification regarding the Mets coaching staff, the New York Mets invited first base coach Antoan Richardson back for next season, but the two parties haven't yet reached an agreement on a renewal, The Athletic has learned. Thus, it's possible he winds up elsewhere. I quote tweeted this right away, and I said there's zero chance that Antoan Richardson goes anywhere, because if he does, I'm going to call for everyone's head. And there's rightful reason to call for everyone's head. And let me just start by having one of the best players on the planet, the best player in the New York Mets, and Mr. Juan Soto, tell each and every one of you how he feels about Antoan Richardson. And this was in reply to having his first 30-30 season.
Well, first of all, just on a personal note, what type of accomplishment do you feel it is to have your first 30-30 season?
I mean, it's good, and you look at it that way. Definitely a lot of hard work we put in since the beginning of the season. Antoine did an unbelievable job. I mean, he's been helping me since day one, so I think I give him all the credit. He's the one who put me in this situation and it's spot to do what I've done.
Well, first of all,
So Juan Soto, pretty much a 40-40 candidate for the Mets this past season. One of the best offensive years we've ever seen in literally Mets franchise history, if not the best. And a key factor in that was not only Soto's ability to not be a complete liability defensively, but to be a plus base runner like we've never seen him be in his career before. Juan Soto's not a fast base runner, nor are the New York Mets. The Mets are statistically one of, if not the worst team in baseball when it comes to average sprint speed. They're slow as hell, especially when you look at guys like Jose Siri, who were out the majority of the year with injury, and Tyrone Taylor was very fickle in what you're getting, so he didn't have consistent play. That same New York Mets club finished top 5 this year in total stolen bases across Major League Baseball. And the exact reason as to how they did it was not because of necessarily how great the speed was of Luis Angel Acuna's limited sample sizes, but rather how brilliant Antoan Richardson was and making sure that everybody had a proper jump because he helped them with a perfect read. It's by taking full advantage of today's MLB rules, which means that if you throw to first base more than twice and do not secure that runner by throwing them out, they will get an automatic bag to second base. That rule has been taken advantage of by smart base runners, including guys that we've also seen in Ronald Acuna Jr. when he had himself his 40 home run, 70 stolen bag type season. Not to say he couldn't do that without it, but it makes things easier. Not only understanding today's game's rules is vital, but pairing that with completely understanding your pitching matchups. Antoan Richardson, brilliant with approaching every single series for the Mets. Brilliant with understanding lefties versus righties on the mound, who's more susceptible to being ran on versus others, and why. That's why even guys like Pete Alonso, while he doesn't run a whole lot, when he does have a strong success rate. I'd imagine that goes in hand with someone like Richardson. The same way that you see WardyNYM continue to make greater strides with his base running. I know Lindor had some blunders, but still had himself another right around north of a 30-30 year. There's a lot to be encouraged by with this Mets base running and how much of a positive voice and a positive impact Antoan Richardson has continued to have on this organization. So the idea that Richardson could be parted with now because the Mets don't have a contract locked up with him has me shaking my boots, and here's why. It's because of all the reasons I just relayed, along with knowing the Mets just failed tremendously this year. And Antoan Richardson has every right in the world to want to go and sign elsewhere and potentially be of greater value to another organization. And when I say value, I don't mean that he hasn't been of great value to the Mets, because he certainly has, but rather maybe moving up into a greater position than even first base coach with another team, given a greater opportunity, because look at his resume this year. Antoan Richardson has every competitive baseball team frothing at the mouth of the idea of signing him, and you'd be foolish to think otherwise. Seriously. So the Mets not only need to do everything in their power to bring him back, but they need to sell him on bringing him back. And one has to hope that the newly acquired bench coach and Kai Correa, who the Mets hired yesterday, helps to a degree in that regard. Simply put, Kai Correa and Antoan Richardson were coaches together with the San Francisco Giants as they were under Gabe Kapler's team there from 2020 to 2023. So there's already a positive relationship, rapport, and understanding there. One has to hope that Steve Cohen flexing the big guns, which is the dollars, David Stern's adamancy, hopefully, because if he's not, I'm going to lose my mind and call him out along with everybody else in the organization, and they allow this man to walk. Because unless Richardson makes it known that he does not want to return to the New York Mets, the Mets are shooting themselves, and not just 1 foot, but both feet. They're shooting themselves in the hands too. They're shooting every appendage that they have on their body if they allow Antoan Richardson to walk, if he has a level of interest in returning. So when we go back to a week and a half ago when the Mets announced that Eric Chavez, Jeremy Barnes, and so many others are parted with, and that graphic included, we're inviting Antoan Richardson to return next year, what exactly does that mean? Does that mean that you're expecting Antoan to come back and be down for the same structure of a contract, and that's that? Where's the status of negotiation there? That's what I'm curious about. I'm not surprised that we don't know about it publicly yet, but that's something that does need to change for the better for this Mets team, and fast. Because if there was one man that was most deserving to return from this prior coaching staff heading into 2026, and one man that the Mets need to return, more importantly than Carlos Mendoza, you could even argue. And that is not an exaggeration when you look at how much Mendoza missed the mark this past year. Antoan Richardson is that guy. So, to David Stearns, to Steve Cohen, if any of you guys come across this video somehow, some way, please listen to me, because I'm just one of thousands of Mets fan voices who feel the exact same with the following. Do not allow this man to walk. It is as simple as that. I'm not saying the Mets can't be strong base running next year without him, but by God, the one single thing that you actually had that worked not only well, but proficiently, significantly, clearly an elite base running team, even when you didn't have elite base runners heading into the season. That man did wonders. And there cannot be any realistic situation where Antoan Richardson walks where he had a level of returning. Because if that happens, that falls on everybody from Steve Cohen to especially David Stearns. And that's where, again, you'll find me being a hothead, losing my mind over a first base coach in the big 2025, because that's how low the bar is for us Mets fans right now. That's all I got, though, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Let me know all your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below on the Mets' latest signing, that being Southpaw Sidearm reliever and Mr. Joe Jakes, along with the uncertainty of Mr. Antoan Richardson, as he and the Mets have yet to negotiate a new contract. Get it done, Steve. Get it done. Thank you guys again for watching. I'll see you on the next one. And as always, no matter what, let's go Mets. Peace out, folks.